And a lot of us, especially Black women, our stories are the same. The trauma that we all experienced in our childhood, trying to sort of like make sense of what beauty is, and sort of having like this external voice and the world telling us that our hair was not acceptable, it was not beautiful, and we had to do all these things in order for it to be accepted in school, even amongst our friends and peer groups.
Hello, welcome to the second episode of Colourful. We are so excited to have you here today. This is the podcast where we talk to white people and Black people about our stories and experiences and use those experiences to understand one another better. Sometimes we laugh, sometimes we cry. Today we might do both because it's a topic that's really close to my heart. So I'm Stacy Jane, and the topic for today stemmed from a discussion that I had with my daughter a couple of months ago. And it tells me that she is in the stage of shaping some kind of identity around her hair, and I want to be able to support her on that journey. The story is quite sad. So we came home the one day and I found my daughter standing in front of this big corkboard that I have with lots of photos stuck on it, and she was pointing at photos of herself over the years where she didn't have her braids in, so she had her natural hair, and she was saying ugly, 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 and pointing at these photos, which obviously broke my heart and leads me to question why she would feel that way when, from a verbal point of view, I've always talked up how special and beautiful her hair is, yet I've clearly missed the mark here. And so I want to investigate that. So, the other thing, I guess, in the background to this is the ever-raging debate around what is appropriate hair in schools, how that must be so psychologically damaging to the future that we build around the stories we tell ourselves about beautiful and hair and where we fit into that picture is really quite mind-blowing. So, I am joined today in a discussion about hair and what it's like to be a Black woman with Afro hair in South Africa today, and I'm sure across the world, by two most lovely, amazing humans. I've got Sena and Mmakgabo with me today, and I'm excited to have a really transparent and an honest conversation with you guys. So thank you for joining me. Let's start with a little bit about who you are and what you do, and also why it's important to you to be a part of a conversation today around how we use hair as a means to desegregate.
Hi, Stacy. Thank you for having me, and thank you to all of the listeners for tuning in. Why I felt so compelled to come here and speak on this topic today is because growing up, I have experienced quite a bit of trauma around my natural hair and the way in which that has affected my self-image and self-esteem. And as a young woman, I never had the vocabulary to be able to describe all of the things that just did not feel right. And so, the story you're telling about your daughter, I can resonate with a little bit of that internalized, basically just a little bit of the self-hate. But what's important for me is to be able to equip other people with the vocabulary, because I think being able to describe something that is so present and so pervasive, once you have that power of language, it really does make a difference. And it certainly made a difference in my journey and coming to love myself and my hair.
Oh, thank you, Sena. I'm so happy to have you here having that conversation with us. And Mmakgabo.
Hi, Stacy. Thank you so much for having me on, and thank you to all the listeners for tuning in. So my name is Mmakgabo. I'm an entrepreneur, so I have two different businesses, but the one that I'm particularly focused on today is Intombi, which is a hair care line. So I make all natural hair care products specifically for women with afro-textured hair. And the journey is very much similar to what Sena was talking about for me as well. Growing up and having to deal with my hair was something that was a little bit more traumatic at times because I did not know what to do with it. And my mom had very different textured hair to mine. And I always looked at her hair as beautiful and soft and curly, whereas mine was very hard and difficult to manage and a bit more coarse. So the narrative that I had in and around my mom's hair was very different to mine. And because she also had different hair to mine, knowing what to do with my hair was also difficult for her too. So when I then became a mother and I have my two beautiful daughters, I did not want the story that I had around my hair to be the story that they have around their hair, because one has hair very much like my texture, and the other has hair like my mother's texture. So I started Intombi from that space to say, as Black women, we all have different kinds of hair in all its different textures and coils and curls. And I want us to embrace our hair and to understand the beauty that is within our hair, as different as it may be. And that is something that I want to pass down to my daughters to say, when they look at their hair and start to structure their identity, to also understand that it's a part of them and it's something that is beautiful and they should embrace it. And I think it's so important to desegregate the narrative around hair and beauty, in the sense that a lot of, especially Black women, we think we know what to do with our hair until we actually start to break it down to say, do you understand your curl pattern? Do you understand the texture of your hair? Do you understand the kind of products you need to use? Do you understand what you need to do with it? You actually find that in those conversations, a lot of people don't actually have the knowledge. And I've sort of made it my mission to to start the conversation and to say, let's have a talk and understand what it is that we need to do so that we can change the narrative around our hair and make it beautiful.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. And really, Mmakgabo, I can't wait to come and bring my daughter with me and have those conversations with you. I know you. We're going to touch on that a little later, actually, how you have those conversations with women. So thank you, and welcome to you both. I am so happy to have you here. So Sena, I know we've had some conversations in the past about your experiences growing up. So take me back to those school days and tell me what your experiences were with your hair.
Stacy, if I could probably sum up the experience in one word, it would be frustration with my hair. And that's basically the relationship as a young girl that I had with my hair growing up. As Mmakgabo rightly described, there were so many things, so many influences that I was picking up on. But the most important thing, or the central thing, is that the message was clear to me, is that my hair is not beautiful. And that is the message implicit in everything that was going on at the time, the school system, how my mother dealt with her hair, how I saw other women, young women dealing with their hair. The message was, your hair in its natural state is not good enough. And that basically set the tone of, my experience and my frustration with my hair.
And can you describe some of those experiences? You say that they gave you this negative perception. What are some examples of those experiences?
Well, Stacy, I think the most traumatic incidents probably happened within the school context. I, like a lot of other young women, went to a school that I can only really describe as being heavily influenced by white culture. It was a former Model C school. So everything about it was white. And I think as the message about it and the lack of understanding about Black hair, and also the perceptions and negative biases, because hair discrimination is a thing. Within the school policies, we had rules like, you're not allowed to wear your hair in an afro. And the prefects and the teachers would go around and single you out if you wore your hair in an afro. And even in the high school context, I remember the HOD going around being like, the thickness of your braids shouldn't be bigger than your index finger. And all of these things, and basically all of this policing of Black women's hair, that all led to this message to me, and that I internalized. And then the self-hate began, is that my hair in its natural state is not good enough.
Have you ever relaxed your hair in an attempt to make it straight?
Oh, of course. My mother didn't also know how to, take care of Black hair. No one ever taught her how to manage it. And as Mmakgabo said, there's so many things that even we don't know, how frequently it should be washed, what products to use, all of those things. So the easiest thing that I think, if I'm contextualizing it from what my mother was thinking, probably her rationale was just to get it to be easy, and to get it to be manageable. And so from a young age, as far as I can remember, I was relaxing and chemically treating my hair to make it straighter. Again, the message to that is that in its natural state, it's not good enough. Straighter, it's easier and more beautiful. And that message, boy, did I internalize. So that I relaxed throughout school. And I'd say that only more recently, as I became an adult and, I left the school system and was in university, did I really begin that journey of educating myself on my hair, falling in love with my hair, and also recognizing that I'd grown to hate it so much.
Oh, That's so sad. What were your experiences of the actual process of relaxing?
Traumatic. Trauma. I feel like I'm just going to use the buzzword is trauma, but the specific instances or like the process of it, it was very traumatic. It was more of a thing where you knew you had to do it. And my mom often, as she would be relaxing that hair, and we'd be sitting in the bathroom in the bathtub and, putting all the products, and I would cry out in pain sometimes. And I remember, I will never forget this because she said it so often. She said, you need to suffer for beauty. That was like her catchphrase. To be beautiful, I had to endure this kind of like really just so uncomfortable. There would be instances where the relaxer burnt my scalp. So I would have like a scalp, and that was like very normal, like a scalp rash or whatever from the relaxer, getting it under control, heating it, applying all these products to it. They would actually they would come with pain, and it would be uncomfortable, and it would be traumatic, especially if I'm contextualizing it from like a 5-year-old or a 4-year-old. They don't have that patience.
Yeah, thanks, Sena. I'm sorry that those are your experiences. Mmakgabo, you run a beautiful initiative where through Intombi you speak with women about their hair. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, definitely. So just going back a little bit, like what Sena was saying, I felt like your experiences were my experiences. Like there were points where like you spoke and I was just thinking, oh my goodness, like I can relate to that so much. That happened to me too. And so in terms of the initiative, that's where it comes from. Because once I launched the hair care line in Intombi, I found that a lot of women had a story around their hair. Like we all have a journey. So I started conversations around hair, and I called it Conversations with Intombi, where I just asked women, so tell me about the journey with your hair. And a lot of us, especially Black women, our stories are the same. The trauma that we all experienced in our childhood, trying to sort of like make sense of what beauty is, and sort of having like this external voice and the world telling us that our hair was not acceptable, it was not beautiful, and we had to do all these things in order for it to be accepted in school, even amongst our friends and peer groups, right? Because it was like if you didn't have relaxed hair, then it's almost like you like there was something wrong with you, and like you needed to go home and get like tell your mom to relax your hair because this is what everybody is doing at the time. So a lot of people will then have stories around how when they relax their hair, then it would break and it would fall off. They'd have like those chemical burns on their scalps, and it wasn't something that was very pleasant to experience. And so then coming together and just saying, but guys, this is what happens when we don't embrace our natural hair, when we don't look at it from a place of just understanding how to work with it and trying to make it something that it's not, then we suffer all these traumatic experiences. So just thinking back, like one of the stories that I have is that when I was young, I think I must have been about 8 years old, my mom took me somewhere to go get my hair done. And I had it plaited, but they pulled it so tight that I couldn't sleep at night. So I had to wake her up in the middle of the night. And she tried so many things. Like they'll say, take like a satin scarf and like put water on it and tie it around your hair, and like it'll make it better. But I just could not sleep at night, and I woke up in tears crying, and I had to wake her up, and I just told her I can't sleep. So in the middle of the night, it must have been like 2 o'clock in the morning, she had to undo my hair. And then there was then the whole thing in the morning around, so what are we going to do with your hair? Because you now need to go to school and you need to be presentable, but your hair's a mess because we needed to undo it in the middle of the night. So just those kinds of experiences stay with us so much. And it's when we start to have those conversations that we realize so many of us as Black women have those experiences. And just having conversations with Intombi as a platform, then we start to have conversations about how do we, as women who's had those experiences, sort of make sure that the young girls and our daughters who are coming up after us are having different experiences.
Yeah, geez, that's really a difficult story. I know whenever my daughter gets her braids put in, the salon tends to recommend giving her a spoon of panado at night. I mean, again, what are we telling our children? Like, to be beautiful, you need to endure this pain. By the way, beauty is Eurocentric, and also have a panado even though you're 5. Like, it's just such a strong message, and I think you guys have shown us that very nicely today. Mmakgabo, I just want to touch on one other thing. These women that you speak to when we talk about their stories, you mentioned to me offline that they experience quite a deep level of shame sometimes when talking to you. Tell me about that word, shame.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting thing that has come up because I did not expect that when I first started. So we recently moved into like a retail space, and I have a section within the store where we do hair consultations. So I say to people, come and then we can talk about your hair type, your texture, your curl pattern, all of that. But one of the things that I then need to do is to see your hair. So if you have it out or that like I can really see like what's going on. But if you have like a wig on or a hat on, I would then ask, can I see your hair? And you could almost see sort of like the shame that people have in their eyes, especially if they have some sort of issue with their hair. So let's say somebody has been plaiting their hair for too long and then their hairline is no longer growing as well, or their hair is damaged and they have like patches around their hair. It's not growing very healthily. So you would see their hesitation to say, no, but like, do I have to show you my hair? Do you have to see it? And then we start to get into the conversation of, okay, what happened? And then you can start to understand like why it is that their hair is the way that it is. And you can understand like the shame that they then have around their hair. Like their hair is not doing the thing that they want their hair to do, or I put this thing on and it wasn't what I was supposed to do. So maybe I was wrong. I was the one who was like did something that was wrong. And I remember talking to you, Stacy, about like, you know, how shame puts this onus on us as if like there's something wrong with us.
And Mmakgabo, in your line of work, you must be exposed to many women who have lots of conversation about hair. And I'm sure that it is a big conversation at the moment in your life around how, as a society, and I guess as individuals who chat to you, would be around the celebration of natural hair. There seems to be a big movement into promotion and celebration of natural hair. Have you found something similar with the women that you speak with?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of people are going towards and wanting to understand their hair a bit better so that, especially mothers who have daughters, want to impart that knowledge and that wisdom onto their daughters so that they can celebrate their hair and understand their hair much better. And I think in like the broader sense, there is a very big movement in the natural hair space in South Africa and globally as well. There are a lot of small brands that are coming out now who are trying to sort of find their niche in the market, find how to promote the idea of natural products and sort of like a natural way of taking care of our hair, the things that we do to our hair, just to change the narrative around how it is that as Black women we take care of our hair. So definitely there is a massive shift in terms of what people are doing to sort of structure the narrative in a different way compared to how historically we've always looked at Black women and their hair.
Yeah, I love that. That's what's going to help me with my conversations with my daughter. Sena, we had a conversation about how the Afro hair care market is worth millions, billions. We know that actually. I recently did a Google search to try to understand how big it is. And you know, it's the number one spoken, or at least the number one search topic in South Africa is around everything to do with Afro hair care. And you shared a possible opinion with me, Sena, on that. What was that?
Yes, Stacy, I did. I think we can all agree that versus a few years ago in the early 2000s, natural hair care products and ethnic hair care products are more readily available now than they were in those times. And we can definitely see an evolution, people taking an interest, women having conversations, and it has presented a really large gap and an opportunity. There's clearly an untapped market share there. So I was wondering, is it really a genuine move towards celebrating and learning about Black hair and ethnic hair and 4C hair and all of the complexities that come with it? And are brands and businesses really pushing to really recognize that and celebrate that? Or is it more of a cash grab because, again, capitalism may prevail here? I'm particularly more sensitive towards a situation where it's just a cash grab and there isn't been any understanding and any thought into what actually what goes into the products, and no thought into how it's branded and how it's marketed, it really has the ability to perpetuate certain biases if not done correctly.
No, that's a very interesting discussion because I think when you look at it from the consumer perspective, yes, there is a genuine conversation that is happening around black hair and natural hair and afro-textured hair and how to really celebrate it and to like a drive to move towards a more knowledgeable way of addressing it. But I think when you actually start to go into business and numbers and actually look at the ownership of the market, you find that a lot of brands that are catering towards Afro-textured hair or African natural hair are not owned by Black people. And so it means that it's not then the best that could go into those kinds of products, right? So you spoke about ingredients and sort of like things that go into making the product. So still, like, there's a lot on the market where it caters towards Black people. But when you start to look at the ingredients, because now I've become so hypersensitive to ingredients, I'm always going back to the label and just checking everything, that I'm like, no, but this isn't the right thing that we're supposed to be using. This is not good for like afro-textured hair. This is not good for this and that and whatever kind of oils that are chosen, the kind of things that are then put into the products are not necessarily the best. And that's because they're not then owned by the people that they're meant to be catering for. So I do think that there is still that element where I think big businesses are sort of like looking at it from like a very capitalist perspective, because they do see that there is a huge shift in the market where the consumer is talking about it, and they're like, okay, how do we benefit from it? But how do they then bring in even smaller businesses who are doing sort of like the work on the ground to really understand what the consumer needs, right? How are those big businesses meeting the smaller businesses to just make sure that both parties are then benefiting? Because it can't just be that because you're seeing a gap in the market that you're running for it and you're like, okay, let's make money because, you know, everybody's talking about it. Like, there has to be like a genuine interest and concern and an understanding of the narrative. But I think I'm of the opinion that not enough is being done.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. That's such a great, and it's such a beautiful story around Intombi as well. And that's why we're so happy to have you here in this conversation. Ladies, I have to bring up something. You both have braids in your hair today, which is an interesting sort of perspective given the fact that we're talking about natural hair. So I just want to spend maybe a minute each. Do you guys want to tell me a little bit about why you have your braids in today, how often you have braids in, and when you consider swapping braids with natural hair?
Yes, Stacy, so I have probed this question. Like, I've really done some introspection, and I can say an honest answer. The reason why I keep my braids, my hair predominantly in the form of braids, is for practicality's sake. It is stylish. I love the colors. I love the versatility. I love the look, and it also saves me a lot of time, because I think in educating myself about my natural hair and what works for it, I know that it is a big time investment, and sometimes I just don't have that. So a few years ago, or as a teenager growing up, and as a child, I may have said, or I may not have been, it may have been, the motive may have been because I'm ashamed, or I just wanted to keep it that way, or I had some sort of internalized hate towards my hair. But as an adult with full autonomy and knowing what I know and having gone through this journey, I can honestly say that it's just because I really dig it.
Oh, I love that, Sena. I feel like we should all have choice in our hair, right? Like, whether you choose to cut it all off or like keep it natural, have it in braids, whatever it is, like we deserve choice. And I think for me specifically, to have my hair in braids, it's like a protective style. So having learned a lot about natural hair, I then understood that we shouldn't necessarily manipulate it too much. Like, it doesn't, like, you can't comb it every day, and you can't sort of like do a lot of things to it every day, because it can be quite prone to breakage and not growing very well. And so for me, it's a method of sort of protecting my hair and making sure that like it is growing in the way that I want it to grow. But I also sort of resonate with what Sena is saying, that it also allows us to understand the versatility in our hair, right? To be able to wear it up in different styles and sort of like show different sides of your personality, so like when you can play around with color, you can play around with different styles, like you can really sort of like have your hair embody whatever you're feeling in the moment, whatever phase you're in your life. If you're a little bit more playful and want to be youthful, then you can sort of like use your hair to communicate that. And so I think, yeah, so there's the part of taking care of my hair and knowing that I need to protect it, but also just being playful with it and just trying out like different styles.
Thanks, ladies. And thank you for coloring in the lines for me today around the type of conversations I need to be having with my daughter. I feel like this last one really helped me understand that there's also choice, and choice is beautiful. And that's another thing to add to her repertoire and her understanding of both hair and beauty in hair. So thank you very much for your honesty, your really sharing from the heart with us today. It was a lovely session. I enjoyed every minute. And I also want to ask Mmakgabo if you can share with us where people can follow Intombi.
Yeah, thank you, Stacy. So, Intombi, you can follow us online. So we've got an online store, www.intombihaircare.co.za, and that's our website. So you can buy all our products and see what we have online. And you can also follow us on TikTok, on Instagram, and Facebook at Intombi SA. And I think Twitter is where we have the conversations around Intombi and sort of conversations with Intombi and what we touched on today. And the other platforms are a little bit more about showcasing the products. But yeah, that's where you can find us online.
And to those of us listening to our second ever episode, thank you for joining us. If you've enjoyed this episode, please can you subscribe to the podcast and comment, share it with your community, rate us. You can also follow me on Instagram at _StacyJane_. I'm looking forward to continuing this journey with you all. Bye for now.